Hi everybody! You're probably saying, who's that? Where's that lady with the odd colored hair? Well, it's still me, which you'll probably figure out when I start rambling and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay. To be honest, which I always am, I think you know that if you watch me at all. I had something happen a few weeks ago that pretty much turned my world around. And it sent me into a tailspin like you can't believe. Changing the hair was part of that. Not just because I find anyway that when we are feeling powerless, not in control of our lives, even the smallest change like doing something to your hair can help, but because I was questioning everything about myself, and all of a sudden I was thinking, what if I'm not coloring my hair all these different colors, because I get a kick out of looking at the variety, because I enjoy the different colors and enjoy that it makes me feel more vibrant. What if I'm doing the crazy colors because of a fear that I will fade into the woodwork like I have most of my life? Because I have been just kind of I'm trying to think. I have described myself as a mouse before, but I have felt redundant, I guess, for most of my life, or supplemental to other people. You know, I have not been someone normally that people take notice of, is what I'm trying to say. And even as currently as a few years ago, I had a person at a meetup class that I was taking tell me that I acted like I wished I were a ghost and that people couldn't see me, that I just held myself so separate from everyone as if I didn't want to be noticed. I was insulted. I was, but it did get me thinking. You know, sometimes there are life circumstances that make you tippy-toe around. You don't want to rock the boat, you don't want to be too vocal, you don't want to be noticed because you don't want the consequences of being noticed, and that can become a habit. And I do know that when I used to have to go to continuing education seminars, I'd be surrounded by all these people that you only saw once a year at these required things. And there would always be a session where everyone got in the same room and questions would be proposed. I would have opinions, but if I dared to raise my hand and give my input, I would always regret it. Not because I said something stupid, not because what I had to say was not of value, but because being a strong empath and not realizing it at the time, all that energy would affect me and make me more and more anxious without even having that register that it was happening. And when I get anxious, I talk more, and I will sometimes, I want to say, be too ballsy. In other words, when I get anxious, my personality changes and I go from mouse to lion. And yes, I may still have something of value to say, but because I'm so uncomfortable, it doesn't come out right. And the point has escaped me, to be honest. See, now you're going, oh yeah, she doesn't have purple hair, but she still gets lost on where she's going. But it does tie into, all of a sudden I'm thinking, what if I still don't have the personality? What if I'm still the person that's going to blend into the woodwork and no one will notice? What if I'm doing this because I think it's the only way I will have any attention from anyone because I feel I'm so insignificant? You know, I'm not going to go into what happened, but it did make me go, I mean, I was blindsided. I did not see it coming. And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to have normal lady hair. I'm going to see if I still have a personality. I'm going to see if suddenly I'm fading away again and people don't even register that I've been there. This is what I told myself. Now, I gotta tell you, I don't like it. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's not me. And so that has helped me understand. This had nothing to do with getting anyone else's attention. This is something that reflects who maybe I don't share with a lot of people, but who I am inside. This makes me happy, these different hair colors, when I look in the mirror, because somehow I'm seeing my essence that I'm not even aware of. But the crazy colors are part of my personality. Not that I'm trying to make them be my personality. So you can see my weeks have been those kind of weeks where I am digging into everything. And you know, if you've watched any of my videos, I've been digging a lot, and I've been trying to share with you when things come up that I think other people may be experiencing, just to let you know you're not alone, for one thing. And sometimes, you know, I can offer ways I have worked through. It's been crazy because I have been going through this transformation, metamorphosis, I guess you could say, you know, and I have been thinking that, you know, here's the cocoon, and I'm thinking I'm the caterpillar, and there's just a little bit left. I've been thinking I've been so close because I've been going through so much. And then this thing happened, and I am like, what is going on? Because this is big stuff. I thought I was almost done. It threw me. But it is interesting because it ties in with the videos I've been doing. It was a tower moment for sure. Total blindside. And it, you know, threw me as to my self-worth. It did involve having to deal with forgiveness. Having to face more things about myself that I somehow was ignoring, which is why I think I'm going to call this Only the Shadow Knows. You know, there was an old TV program, and you may not know anything about it. Frankly, I don't know the name of it unless it's just The Shadow. But it was something about who knows what evil lurks in the heart of men. Only the shadow knows. Well, these weeks have made me delve into my shadow traits. And it is surprising that they are not the traditional shadows, which is why I decided to make the video. I was frankly shell-shocked for a few days. I was walking around like a zombie, not allowing myself to feel anything until the point where it all came crashing in. Then I was bawling like a baby and being critical of myself, trying to analyze what I had done, thinking I had been behaving quite reasonably. And then something was different from how it usually is. For the first time, I think, in my life, I was able to step back and be more of an observer. I knew this was meant to be a learning opportunity, but I quit beating myself up. I quit thinking it had to be something wrong with me. And I just started looking at issues like I would look at them in someone else, which of course is more generous, more kind, more loving. And I tell you, I am so grateful for that change. We do all this work and we think, oh, I'm still so far from where I need to be. I'm not making any progress, or I'm not making progress fast enough. And it was that alone that made me realize my work is paying off. I've made more progress than I realize. And so this time I was able to look at things that, frankly, I had been warned were there that I wasn't seeing. I had gotten a few cards that were telling me there's something you're not seeing. Try to look at things from a different perspective or a larger perspective. And that was suddenly something I could do. So I have been delving into shadows. And I have been discovering things that are not necessarily flattering about myself, but I've been doing it without the self-criticism. I'm not going to say without any. I mean, because we have to be a little bit critical to honestly see some of these things, but so differently than I normally did, where I took everything personally, took everything as having to flow from something wrong with me. And it told me, I'm not imagining it. I'm learning to love myself, which, people, it's incredible. It's not a place I ever thought I would get to. So as I tell other people, celebrate the baby steps. You know, it takes a lot of baby steps to make a large stride, and for some reason we think we only get to celebrate when we get to the end. Maybe some people don't even celebrate those large strides they're making toward the end. But even the tiny little baby steps should be celebrated, because it's all movement forward. It's all going in the right direction. Well, about self-worth. Before, it would have been, you know, why doesn't, I mean, it involved a person. I'm not going to go into the details, but it involved a person. So before it would have been, well, way before it would have been, well, I'm a piece of crap, and that person just realized it. Then with some work, it would have been, why doesn't that person see my value? Because there was a point, you know, I started realizing, no, get out of that piece of crap stuff. You have value. But I would have been throwing it at this other person and saying, what the hell's the matter with them? Why don't they see I have some value? And this time it was, there's value. I'm sure they see it. There's something going on with them. This really doesn't have to do with me. Yes, I can feel rejected, or I can just accept that there are other things at play, or divine timing, or whatever the heck it is. It doesn't have to do with me at all. You know, I'd gone through my pity party. I had gone through, you know, those gut-wrenching, ugly, crying times where you feel like your guts are going to come out, or that you've run out of liquid in your body. I had gone through all that. I gave myself a few days and then came out of zombie state and just started calmly breaking things down. So as to understanding that it wasn't about me, that was the first big triumph. Then it got down to trying to do detective work, I guess you would say. Okay, this has to have happened because there's this thing that I'm not seeing. What am I not seeing? I did a YouTube pick a card. Now, I know I did a video that said I was going to cut down on that. I did it as a character, but I mean, that was my intention also, not just the characters, to limit things to about me. And this was about past lives. And there were, I think, 4 cards that came up, but the ones that were crucial, there was one about orphaned, and there was one about unrequited love, and then her explanation about the likelihood of this person, you know, in these past lives where these issues had taken place, being a part of my life now, because there would still be healing to be done, issues to work out. And she pointed out that this had to do with rejection and abandonment. Now, I know I'm not the only one that has those issues. I think most people have those to some extent, but mine have been pretty big because I was given away, you know, after I was born by my biological mother. And, you know, I formed that feeling that life was always going to turn to shit on day 1. And now see, I'll get too distracted. I'll go into where this starts and then where it took me. So the reader pointed out that if you have someone in your life that doesn't respond to you, or that doesn't reply to your messages, or, you know, that runs hot and cold, or that disappears suddenly, and it throws you, this is likely this person helping you work on these issues that were brought up in past lives. So, you know, with unrequited love, obviously you feel rejected. The abandonment was the big one for me, because I never thought about, you know, I do react very triggered when anyone doesn't respond to a message and I have seen that they're online. I was telling myself, well, it's because it's just a simple matter of courtesy. But she pointed out that not being responded to can correspond with being orphaned and feeling like no one's there for you, and that you have been discarded. And there's this correlation with not being responded to that triggers that. Very interesting to me, and it was nice to have an explanation, because I couldn't figure out, you know, why I would give such a rip that someone wasn't courteous. You know, it just had never made sense, but it was as far as I could go. Now, here's where I was going. That brought me to realizing that though I had never felt any hostility toward my biological mother, I had always felt that she would have done this because she thought it would give me a better life. Suddenly, I was in this place of, you had other children. Yes, it would have been awkward because you were single, but if you'd really wanted me, you could have figured out a way. If it had been me, I would have figured out a way. And so suddenly, I realized that that was something I'd been holding in and not allowing to come out, because of course anger, not something I have had much experience with processing. I have stuffed in anger for many, many years. Yes, many, many years, as you can see. I let loose. I let loose on my biological mother because this was the first time I'd really dealt with my thinking that she could have kept me. I had never held her accountable in any way until then, and because I finally needed to process this abandonment issue, it finally happened. You know, I felt kind of guilty, and then I thought, no, I'm not supposed to be feeling guilty for feeling a legitimate emotion, but it doesn't mean I have to hold on to it. So finally, I dealt with that. You know, how can you get to much more of a core, as in core issue, than day one? And, you know, what your little baby soul has concluded. So that was a big deal. And this is why, when shit happens in my life that is painful, I know that I have a choice. I can be all resentful, and I can be a bitch, and I can, you know, throw accusations out in my mind all day, all week, all month if I want. But I'm at the stage where I realize it presents me with something to at least dig into to see if there's something to be healed. And obviously this was a huge one. Now, whether that works out the karma or whatever with the person that's in my life, I don't understand that. But it got to a very basic thing that I'd been holding on to and not even realizing. Because, you know, I'll just say, I'm the person who always tries to be generous about people's motivations, you know, until it just becomes way clear that they have very bad intentions. So, you know, I always will make excuses. Well, maybe it was because, or, you know, so with my biological mother, it was, well, I understand how awkward it would have been, you know, in the 50s. To have just shown up with a baby and having to explain that to your kids at home when you're single, you know. And for the first time, I just expressed more than disappointment. I mean, I was angry that she hadn't tried harder. I've apologized. She's in spirit, but I've apologized. It was a place I had to go, and I know she would understand that. So, see, there's a good thing. There's the second one. I figured out why I have been reacting to people in this life, feeling ignored or disrespected is what I'd been telling myself, but it was triggering being abandoned. That's a pretty big discovery. This is gonna be such a long ass video. I don't know that anyone's gonna go through it, but there will be parts in here that certain people will relate to, and I have to believe that Spirit will bring the people by that need to see the part that they will spend time listening to. So, the third big thing. This happened to be at a time when I was about as low as could be on my life force energy. I'd been giving too much. I run a group on Facebook. I'd been giving too much. I'd not been getting much in return. And I just was drained. So of course that made me vulnerable. Then we had the preamble to the eclipse and the moon energy. I really was not in a good place. I was about as vulnerable as could be. And I got to thinking about the situation that had started this all off, and I was thinking, but wait a minute. I have worked so damn hard to try to make other people comfortable at my own expense. I mean, I have not been focused on me as much as just trying to make it as easy as I can be, other than the occasional bumps in the road where, there's a reaction or I blew it temporarily or whatever. But it had been a concerted effort on my part to make things as comfortable as possible for other people. which of course is part of the problem. Because when I was reading up about energy, I was reading about, these uneven energy exchanges. For there to be balance in any relationship, there has to be give and take in pretty much equal parts. There can't be one person giving, and the other person taking, or, giving, not giving a shitting. It just throws off any kind of relationship, whether you're talking parent-child, friendship, romance, whatever. And what I found interesting was that when there is that imbalance, it's usually the person that is not the giver that will call it quits. Somehow they sense. I'm not sure. There wasn't really any logic explained behind it, but I found that interesting. The one that's been taking, or the one that, has been like, yeah, big deal, I don't care that you're doing all this for me, that's the one that usually ends those connections. Excuse me. And sorry, I had to open the door, it's so hot in here, so you're going to hear the wind roaring out there. And so, with my energy so down, and me thinking, but I've been working so hard, I didn't get to the obvious, which is that, yeah, you've been giving away too much and not asking for enough for yourself. I got to the place where I was, in whiny baby mode, but in almost a nervous breakdown, I have to admit, where I was saying, when is it going to be my turn? When is someone going to make an effort for me? When is someone going to worry about what makes me comfortable? When is it going to be my turn? When will someone care enough about me to nurture me? I am always nurturing everyone else. I mean, I was just the little kid having the fit in the store. Kicking my feet and pounding the floor. When is someone gonna nurture me? And I was losing it. It was like, I just wish someone would scoop me up like a baby and hold me. Or I wish I would just, finish off this nervous breakdown attempt and be put in the hospital so I don't have to do jack shit. Someone will just take care of me for the first time in my life. And there we go. Aha. It was not nurtured as a child. The basic emotional needs of a baby were not met. The fact that I raised a child that didn't grow up to be a serial killer, not knowing how to nurture because I hadn't been taught it by example, is amazing. So I'll give myself some credit for that. I'm sure she would say, there are lots of things I did wrong, but somehow I learned how to nurture on my own. I'm sorry, I had this nose itch driving my nose. I'm not picking it, I'm just scratching at people. And so it was, a light bulb moment for sure to realize, a large part of my issues is that I'm searching for someone that will nurture me because I haven't had it. And there's that little baby or little toddler or little inner child that is still wanting to just be scooped up and held and, cooed at and have their needs met and not feel like they have to do everything on their own, because that's what led to my aha moment of today. And I promise you, four aha moments and then I'm done. Because today I realized in the shower, I know I've said this before, in the shower is really a nice place to get insight, because you've washed your body a million times. You're not having to concentrate on anything, you're just doing it by habit, and it just opens you up. And I don't even remember what got me thinking about this, but all of a sudden I was crying in the shower. Yeah, I'm a big bawling baby, people, a lot of the time. Better than holding it in and having it explode and, going postal, I suppose, right? But I was just thinking that I'm so tired. I've gotten some of my energy back, but I was just crying and saying, I'm so tired of having to work at everything so hard. I don't want to have to work this hard. And all of a sudden I realized that even with spirit, I feel like I have to earn everything. I've known for a while that I think, no matter what I do, if there's something wrong, if I slip up, there's going to be punishment, and I've kind of poked a few holes in that. And I've actually been told I tried too hard and still didn't make the connection, because I realized even with spirit, the things they are asking me to do to become a better version of myself, I still feel like I'm being asked to jump through all these hoops, that I have to work so hard at everything. See the closed fists? Something I never registered. I am fighting so hard at everything to accomplish what I think is being asked of me. And I was saying, I don't want to have to work for everything. I'm so tired of working so hard. Give me a damn miracle without making me do something. Or tell me I'm okay to just be, and allow something good to happen without me having to put in so much effort. And that was the light bulb of today. I do this because these patterns have been drilled into me from my childhood, and I am continuing to this day. And as you can see, I am far from being a child, and yet I'm still operating in the same way, thinking that I can't just be and have good things happen. Well, what we think is what goes out to the universe. And here I am not even giving myself a break with spirit. Who I know is loving and wants the best for me, and is breaking me down through this transformation or metamorphosis, so that I am no longer that old person, and I am this new person who will hopefully be moving toward peace and happiness along with whatever my mission is. I know I am heading toward a mission, and that it's something fairly important. And it's a good thing, or I probably would have offed myself. Sorry, but, it does cross my mind on occasion, that the easiest thing would be to just fucking escape. Life is work for me. But see, now I know. As of today, I'm making it so because of my beliefs. And so I'm going to conclude, and you're probably going, yay. But what I want to do is encourage you to see your challenges as opportunities. Sure, give yourself the pity party for a few days. If you have to shout, what's that word, epithets, at the person you want to see as the offender, do it if it makes you feel better. But please remember this. Even separate from the soul connections that are intended to mirror to you what you have been refusing to see in yourself, most people that will be in your path where you don't like something or you're offended by something are showing you something you need to see about yourself that you're in denial about. So now you're probably saying, why is she talking about shadows? Because, and thank you, brain, for reminding me so I can at least attach something to the title and have it make sense. You know, we think about shadows as things like anger, resentment, arrogance, whatever. And I hadn't realized until these recent events that shadow traits for me are really just normal parts of being a human that thinks that they count. So, to me, a shadow trait, something to ignore, was me being what I was looking at as selfish, which was me not thinking that I get to ask for anything for myself. You know, like I said, I was making all these efforts to make everyone else happy, trying to make them comfortable, and thinking that I couldn't state my own needs or ask for what I desired because that was selfish. Something to be not acknowledged, to be pushed out of the way because it was a trait I didn't want to recognize in myself. Well, as it turns out, it's not some dirty little secret. And by the way, your shadow traits are not evil. So when I started out, I should have explained. This is not about, these things that are parts of us being evil. It's just the things that we're keeping in the shadows because we're putting that onto them. They're all legitimate. They're all parts of us, and they're all things that should be loved. But, it's not selfish to want things for yourself. It's not selfish to state your needs, and it's not selfish to ask that energy be returned in at least close to the same amount that you are putting it out for others. And yet, I was seeing that as something that I couldn't embrace, didn't even want to acknowledge. Being selfish was this awful, dirty personality trait that I wasn't acknowledging. None of those things are selfish. That's part of loving ourselves, is to ask for our own needs to be met. Now, if we are with people or we run into people that don't want to fulfill anything for us, that don't want any kind of equal give and take, then we have a choice. Like everything is a choice in life. The choice should not be to accept less than we deserve, though. The choice should not be, now this is just my opinion, you never have to buy into it. In my opinion now, with the light bulb having gone on, the choice should not be to allow ourselves to be the doormat, or to allow ourselves to always be the one working so hard to make the other people comfortable. The choice should be, I will choose to have people in my life that care enough about me to give to me also. I will choose to have people in my life that will offer something to me that I can receive. Because to be in balance, the scale, you can't just give. You also have to receive to keep it even, or else it's, the one you see in the picture so out of balance. It's really irritating to be such an old broad and just finally figuring these things out. So, maybe there are some younger people that will be ahead of the game in their lives if something I say rings a bell. Otherwise, you can just say, that's a crazy woman going on sharing things about her life that we don't really care about. But here is maybe the fifth light bulb. I may not feel like myself in this hair color, but I do still have a personality with the right people that are looking for the right things. And the people that are not, I don't have to choose to be influenced by them. Remember, please, everything is a choice. And in your choices, honor yourself. It's not selfish. It's how it's supposed to be. It's the basis of unconditional love. We can't unconditionally love anyone else until we unconditionally love ourselves. I'm not claiming that I'm there. But I'm here to say, I am making damn good progress. And I'm very thrilled about that. And so, know that you are probably also making progress on your path. And celebrate those little teeny baby steps. Don't say, oh, they don't matter, they're just baby steps. Yes, they do matter, because this many baby steps just turned into a stride. And then pretty soon your strides are going to be getting you closer and closer to that better version of yourself. Celebrate yourself. And this time, these are not fists of frustration. This is like, go. You go. Celebrate yourself. I don't know why that made me emotional. And just thinking of people out there going, damn, I'm more special than I realized. And that's why I do these things, so you can realize that about yourself as I'm finally realizing them about me. Oh, stop. For God's sake. I'm sorry. That was a weird reaction. Anyway. I don't want to have dripping mascara. I will sign off now, but please, without me bawling like a baby, do celebrate yourself. There's only one you on this earth, and you're exactly as you should be. You're at the stage you're supposed to be. If you choose to work to grow, that's awesome. If you choose not to, then you're not at the place on your timeline yet where you're supposed to be ready. Just love yourself and know that you're special. I'm sending love. Bye.